prices decrease. No, actually it's not. When the prices decrease, we call a deflation, a general fall in overall prices. Deflation is actually quite harmful to our economy. There's several reasons for that. First of all, consistently falling prices lead consumers to delay purchases. What do we mean by that? When prices decrease, I'm thinking, hey, you know what? Today the price is lower than it was yesterday. Probably tomorrow it's going to be even lower than today. So I'm going to wait until tomorrow to purchase that good. So I'm delaying my purchases because I expect prices to decrease in the future. So now I'm delaying my purchase and I've reduced the demand for certain goods. So firms start seeing a reduction in sales and start cutting back on the production. When they don't produce as much, they don't need as many workers. So they're not even hiring people, but also they may start laying some people off. Less sales, less jobs. So now consumers fear the job losses and also delayed their purchases. Now I'm delaying purchases for a different reason. Now I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, and as a result, I'm not buying as much. So this cycle is going to be pretty hard to break. So decrease in prices, as we say, is not beneficial for the economy, is actually more harmful. So contrary to many people believe that when prices decrease, it's a good situation, maybe temporarily. It's cheaper for us to buy goods and services, we can afford to buy more. For the economy, it's actually pretty harmful. We want to see prices to increase here and there. We want to see about 2% inflation. More specifically, we want inflation to be pretty close to our GDP growth. So we want to see it in about 2% and GDP about 3 to 4% growth. And that means that our economy is growing and it's doing pretty good. Once we start seeing the overall decrease in prices, that actually means that our economy is not doing good and we may be in the recession. Unemployment. Let's define unemployment. I'm pretty sure you've heard about unemployment before, and you probably have a general idea what unemployment is. And you probably hear the numbers and you have a certain understanding of what that number means. So when a person is unemployed, we say they're available to work, actively looking for work, but cannot find a job. Just because a person doesn't have a job, it doesn't mean they're unemployed. So we have to satisfy some requirements. This person has to be available for work and actively looking for work. If tomorrow I quit my job and decide not to work anymore, I voluntarily left my work, I would not be considered to be unemployed because I'm not actively looking for work. So let's look how do we calculate this unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is the percentage of labor force who are actively seeking employment. So we take those people who are available looking for work but don't have a job, divided by the overall number of people in the labor force, multiplied by 100%, and we get our unemployment rate. So of course here we have to talk more specifically about what labor force is. So let's start with our definition. It's the total number of workers in the economy, whether they're employed or unemployed. To be included in the labor force, you don't have to have a job. If you have a job or don't have a job, you will be included in the labor force if you satisfy some requirements. Labor force is not going to be a fixed number of people. It's going to change with time. As our population grows, we have more people available for work, thus our labor force is going to increase. It responds to economic forces and social trends. For example, in the past where it was more acceptable for a female of the household stay at home with their kids and not to look for work, they were not included in the labor force. So labor force in 60s was much smaller than it is today due to the fact that there's more females that are actively looking for work or actually going to work. It also will change with seasons. Some people have seasonal jobs, so they're really just working during a particular time and not working at the other times when it's not their season. So what it takes for you to be included in the labor force? If you are included in the labor force, you cannot fall under each of the following, either one of the following categories. So who's not included in labor force? Children under the age of 16. So those are not going to be included in the labor force. Even though a 15-year-old may be looking for a job, he's not going to be included in the labor force, and thus he's going to be omitted from the calculation of unemployment rate. Those that are institutionalized, they're not going to be included in labor force. Active military, it's a special category, so we're not including them in the labor force. Retirees voluntarily decided to quit their job, or maybe by the age they decided to stop working, so they're not included in the labor force. Stay-at-home caregivers, whether you're taking care of your children, or you're taking care of your spouse, or you're simply taking care of yourself, you decide not to look for the employment. Full-time college students, those are not included in the labor force. So this is where it gets very interesting and tricky. Full-time college students, even if you want to get a job, we're not including you in the labor force if you're looking for the employment. So we're not considering you to be unemployed. Yet it's very interesting. Once you get a job, once you're full-time college students and you have a job at the same time, you automatically will be included in the labor force and into the employed category. So full-time students without jobs not included in labor force. Full-time college students with jobs will be included in both labor force and employed category. And finally, discouraged workers. That's another interesting category that we're not included in the labor force. Right now, by the law, if a person was actively looking for work for more than a year, we consider them to be a discouraged workers. We're assuming that a year is about enough time for you to find a job. And if you say that you've been looking for the job for more than a year, we just think that you're not looking hard enough. You're not accepting available position. And thus we call you a discouraged workers. So those are not going to be included in the labor force, even though some people may still be looking for jobs even after a year of being unemployed. This is especially tricky with people during the recession times. We know that during the recessions, particularly bad one like we had this from 2008 to the most recent recession, some people were looking for work for much longer than a year. So Bureau of Labor Statistics decided that to change the definition of discouraged workers, and I believe they allowed for workers to look for work for about a year and a half in order to be considered to be discouraged. So the unemployment rate that we receive is actually reflecting the truthful information about the workers and not information that's simply guided by the definition of labor force. So all of this type of people are not going to be included in the unemployed categories. They're not included in the labor force. Let's talk about this thing that we call natural rate of unemployment. So right now the unemployment rate is about 6.8%. Do we really want the unemployment rate to get to zero? No, it's really not going to be possible to get it close to zero. Because we want to get unemployment rate, believe it or not, close to 4 to 5%. We don't want it to be lower than that, and we'll talk about that. So unemployment rate is never zero. Some unemployment is actually normal for our economy. Here's the reason why. Even if a job exists and a person exits with matching skills, it takes some time for the person to find that job and go through hiring process. This is something that we call frictional unemployment. Whenever jobs available, but it takes time to match people with skills for those jobs. So you have to go through application process, and when you do that, you're not receiving payment, so you're still technically considered to be unemployed, right? But that's what we call frictional unemployment, and that's what we call normal for economy. It takes time for you to find a job to get through the hiring process. Also, as an economy grows and changes, some jobs become obsolete and new industries are created. When a person loses a job to the fundamental change in the structure of the economy, it takes time for them to get retrained for new jobs. We talked about such thing as creative destruction. We said that when computers were created, the typewriters became obsolete. So think about all those jobs that were lost due to the computer creation, right? All those typewriters, they were no longer required. So they had to be retrained. So they were not employed for a certain period of time. And that's what we call structural unemployment. Finally, there's also seasonal unemployment. Some ski instructors may work really hard during winter time, but may not have a job during summer months. Right? So they're technically considered to be unemployed, but that's just a seasonal unemployment. They're looking for work, they want to work, but they're waiting for their season to begin. So all those three kind of unemployment, that's what going to be included in the natural rate of unemployment. So we consider that it's about 4 to 5% of our labor force will be considered a natural rate of unemployment. Different countries will have different natural rates of unemployment. It will largely depend on the structure of the labor market, and by that we mean depends on the minimum wage laws, hiring firing laws, and unemployment benefits. All of those will affect natural rate of unemployment. We watched the videos not so long ago about minimum wage and we saw how it distorts the economy. We saw that minimum wage actually creates some additional unemployment in the economy, right? Because some people are no longer able to find jobs because there's not enough available. So that contributes to unemployment. There's also another side of the minimum wage laws that will affect the natural rate of unemployment. As we increase natural minimum wage, more people are starting actively looking for work. So in a way, we may actually contribute to the unemployment rate, not just because some people lose their jobs, but because more people are interested in finding a job. Think about this. If minimum wage laws did not exist, the salary would be about, for some jobs, would be about $5 an hour. Many people will think, you know what, I only have enough skills to work for $5 an hour. At that wage, I'd rather stay at home. Now, if we increase it to $9 an hour, those people are more motivated to go find jobs. But less jobs are going to be available. Thus, we increased not just the unemployment rate, but also we increased number of people in our labor force. Hiring firing laws also contribute to this natural rate of unemployment. In some countries, it's more difficult to be hired or versus fired, right? So it may take longer period of time, thus natural rate of unemployment may be higher. Unemployment benefits also contribute to the natural unemployment. The higher those benefits, the more incentives we provide in people with taking their time to look for work. So the higher the unemployment benefits, the longer some people will take to look for jobs. As a result, the higher the natural rate of unemployment is going to be. We said that when economy goes into recession and unemployment rises above the natural rate, that's bad kind of unemployment. And that's an unemployment that we contribute to our business cycle or that economic cycle. So that's what we call cyclical unemployment. And that's an unemployment that we can correct with appropriate government policies. We can either leave it to the economy to recover on its own, or we can help with the appropriate policies to correct for that cyclical unemployment. So that unemployment that we have, we calculated as a difference between the actual rate of unemployment and the natural rate of unemployment that exists in the country.